Men should not cry in public. It is unmanly and dishonorable.
Real men cry, and if women can cry, men can cry too. There's nothing wrong with it. And there absolutely is something wrong with it, and I'll explain to you why. Saying that I felt like crying, so I cried, this makes me a real man, is as stupid as me saying, well, I felt like smashing his face in, so I smashed his face in.
You have no idea how many people that's killing. You have no idea. I see people everywhere, all over the world. They're so demoralized.
In an internet world between Andrew Tate denies the existence of clinical depression and Jordan Peterson, who starts sobbing into the camera as soon as you open YouTube. I'm sorry, I love Jordan Peterson, but I just think it's funny. But, you know, don't get me wrong, I love this guy. I think a lot of men have a confusion about what it means to express their emotions if they're a man. Yeah, let's look in this video what I think is a good, strategy to express your emotions as a man without being a pussy. I hope you like this video. So these days, it's obvious young men and men in general are desperate for male role models. That's why people like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate are so popular, because we're a generation of men who really have been raised by kind of like a female-dominated education system. Our fathers oftentimes were not the best role models to show us how to survive in the masculine world. It's obvious to me that that's the reason why these guys are so popular. To kind of like give you a hint here, so I'm not a big fan of Andrew Tate for the reasons that I think he's too cold-hearted. I'm more admirer of like people like Jordan Peterson who are able to express their emotions. And if you see Jordan Peterson, he's able to express anger, joy, and negative emotions. He can cry as well. So he's a guy that he has just the full repertoire of emotions. And that's just missing in Andrew Tate. I feel like Andrew Tate is just like anger, masculine vibe, masculine energy. And if you're into that, more power to you. For me personally, I don't like it, because I think it's okay to cry as a man. I can remember a year ago, like my life was destroyed, man. I got kicked out of university. I got rejected by women all the time, despite being like 24/7 approaching women. Most of them rejected me. I had 20 euros in my bank account. I lived with my mom. I had no job. I didn't even get welfare money because I was under 25. So in Germany, usually if you're unemployed, you get like welfare money. And honestly, I'm getting that right now. If you're under 25, you don't get that money. And at that point, I was 24. So I didn't get that money. So I had nothing, man. My life was completely destroyed. Funny enough, 1 month later, I met my ex-girlfriend. So my life and my business developed better in the following year. So I made more money. Yeah, at that point, my life was just shattered to pieces. Like, it was fucking hell. And I can remember I started sobbing in the subway. Like, I didn't even care anymore. And honestly, look back at this time, two things come to mind. Like, the first one is that was a natural thing to cry, because, dude, my family was a fucking mess. My life was a mess. Everything was a mess. And obviously then, like, why should I be happy about that, right? If I would be happy about the fact that my life is falling apart, that would be a very dysfunctional emotion, right? So that was really a natural thing. And I can remember this crying was kind of like anger crying, because a lot of people think like crying is just about like crying because you're sad, but that's not true. Like, a lot of time people cry because they're angry, because they don't get what they want. And when I look back at this time, I kind of feel like, it's like a child, really, when I look at this person, because I just cried because I didn't get what I want, which was pussy. No, it wasn't just pussy, but I got nothing. Like, none of my goals I didn't meet any of my goals. That's when I really cries of frustration, because I was fucking hopeless, man. And even that, like, if I look back at the time, looking at me like a 2-year-old who doesn't get ice cream, that's a very harsh judgment I make to myself, because I don't think that's a good judgment either, because, man, that was okay to cry. Like, my life was a fucking mess. Like, it's been destroyed by myself and external factors as well. Yeah, I'm a huge defender of, I think sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. And for me, certainly that was the case. Like, my life it's better now. I've picked up a bit of responsibility and started working on my business, my friendships, my romantic relationships, my family. And it's better than last year, that for sure. And I will pick up the pieces slowly and just start rebuilding my life. And that's the best thing you can do. Anyhow, how do you express your emotions without being a pussy? So the first thing is all this like Andrew Tate alpha male thing that, you can just like push your emotions down. And like even this guy from the Daily Wire who made the documentary What Is a Woman said, adult men are not supposed to cry. This is fucking bullshit, man. Like, forget this nonsense, because feelings are part of human beings, right? Man and female. And yes, males tend to be by nature less emotional than women. That's just true, and that's fine. If you're not an emotional person, then go for that. I'm not a super sensitive person. Like, I don't cry often anymore, but also because like the time I've went through the last 2 years that were so awful, it kind of gave me mental strength, right? So for me now, it has to happen. There's a lot of shit that needs to happen before I just like throw my hands in the air and be like, oh my life is so bad, and start crying. Like, no, there's a lot that needs to happen before I start to cry. And that's fine. It's just me. I'm not repressing my emotions. I'm just a person. I don't cry a lot. Like, I get wet eyes sometimes, but that's basically it. I don't cry because I just don't feel the need to. But if you're a sensitive person, like, for example, Jordan Peterson, he has this personality trait that he is full of empathy. He's very agreeable. For example, I'm very disagreeable. I have very, very low levels of empathy. So he's kind of the opposite personality to me. Yeah, if you like that, if you're an agreeable, empathetic person, man, go for it. Like, cry, whatever, when somebody walks up to you and shares something with you that you find to be personally moving, go ahead. Just here, I want to tell you. So emotions are a very wide thing to do. The first one is the myth that like men who are in touch with their emotions are weak pussies. No, men who are in touch with their emotions are powerful. They're confident and energized, okay? That's the reality about being a man who's able to express his emotions. The second thing is there are a variety of emotions. There are positive emotions, for starters, like happiness, pleasure, excitement, these kind of things. There are negative emotions like fear, pain, shame, like all the things that people tend to hide. These are the negative emotions. And most men, especially in Western society, like Western society has a huge focus on positive emotions like happiness, everything's so great. Especially if you look at the USA, for example, you meet an American, you ask them like, how are you? And they're depressed. You'll be, I'm so good, man. I'm so good. Everything's fine. It's like, no, don't do this bullshit. So first, learn emotional honesty, that if you feel like shit, if you're in pain, if you feel fear, don't act like these emotions are not there. That's the first step. And you will realize, especially if you've repressed these emotions for a long time, if you start letting these emotions out, you will be like a fucking emotional waterfall, right? You will end up like me crying in a subway, like people around thinking, what the fuck's wrong with this guy? But I didn't care at that point. And I don't advise you to go like to the next subway and just start sobbing, but if you feel the need to, go ahead. Just be aware that negative emotions are really, really important to express, and that negative emotions it's literally an evolutionary mechanism. So negative emotions develop to show you that there's a specific thing that you need to change. If you feel fear, don't ignore it. It's telling you something. There's a fear that you need to address. Most of the times you need to face that exact fear. If you feel shame about something, then you probably need to share that with a trusted person, or less trusted, depending on how you approach it. But also, here's shame, you need to share it. If you feel happy, if you feel pleasure, then everything is good. Bake yourself a fucking cake, go eat some ice cream, but they're not going to last. These good feelings, negative emotions will appear. Feel the sensations in your body. For starters, if you want to develop higher emotional intelligence, you should start by feeling these emotions yourself. Just feel like the negative vibe of the fear, of the insecurity. Just feel them, how that tension builds up in your body. And then the next step is to express it to other people. Like, hey, I feel fear. I feel shame. I feel embarrassed. I'm in pain. I feel like shit. Or you can tell him you're happy, you're excited, but that's easy to do, right? Most of us struggle with expressing negative emotions. Okay, a big negative emotion, and people struggle with this all the time, like I do, is anger. Anger is something, if you're like me, you just take a fucking wall and like smash it against the fucking wall if you're angry. But that's not a very advisable thing to do. So you can express anger in healthy ways. Like, for example, if there's an injustice, if there's something happened in your life that isn't right, you can use that emotion to make things right. You can also use anger to be more productive, to work more, to put that aggression into your work, into your craft as a guy. So you can channel this anger also if it's aggression in healthy ways, or you can start working out and expressing your anger in that ways, right? The kind of key message here is negative emotions, people tend to try to repress them, especially anger, fear, shame. They lock it down, and that's what the culture also teaches you. But if you've read some Carl Jung in your life, you know that this is kind of the anima, it's the shadow side that people don't want to show. But if you want to become a fully integrated person, you need to incorporate these negative things into your personality. And that will make you a final individual that has an individual identity from the group, from your social structure, right? But these negative things, especially negative emotions, you need to find a way to integrate those into your personality. Otherwise, you will just be a person that just behaves like everybody else and is no different, has no individual identity. So that's not what you want. Integrate the negative emotions, be honest about your negative emotions, and that should do it. That should solve most of the problem on how to express your emotions as a man. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you do, hit the subscribe button, like the video, and see you soon.